Father, we thank you that your love has no limit. And you know all about us. You know our sitting down. You know everything about us, oh God. There's no height that is so high that you cannot reach. There's no depth that is so low that you cannot go. Yes. You will go far. Even if we far away, we think that you will reach us, oh God. Your love is like a liquid that it goes, it penetrates, it reaches. Lord, we just thank you for this love that is available for us every time, anytime. So Lord, we just receive, we absorb all that you have for us, oh God.
You will continue to do your good work in us, deep within our soul, deep within our spirits and in our hearts. That you continue to change our thinking, our thought process, our perspective, that we will become more like you. Thank you, Lord. In Colossians 3 verse 13 to 14, it says that, so chosen by God for this new life of love, dressed in the wardrobe God picked out for you, compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline, be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offense, forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. And regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It's your basic all-purpose garment. Never be without it. It is not easy being in a family. All of us come from different family backgrounds. Some of us come from a great family. Some of us come from a broken family, whereby be it parents, be it siblings, the absence of them or the presence of them sometimes just make your whole life worse. In a biological family, we don't have a choice. We were born into those families. And be it good or bad, we just kind of have to deal with it and make do with it. But when it comes to the Heavenly Father, He gave us a very different picture of how a father should be like. All of us are humans, and this is the same with our family as well. None of us are perfect. When I was growing up, I have always thought that, oh, I just wish my dad was more like the other person's father. And I wish my mom was more like the other person's mom. And when it came to my brothers, sometimes I'm wondering, even my friends treat me better than my brothers, or I have set a different expectation of how I would like my brothers to be. And now that I'm married, I do think, oh, I wish Pavel was sometimes like the other person, or had the other mentality, or look at things differently. And when it comes to myself, I also have that same perception whereby, oh, I wish I was more like this. I wish I was more patient. I wish I was better. So there's always a different set of expectations that we place on ourselves, on our family, and on the people around us. But this is where it's so miraculously wonderful that when we spend time in God's presence, my heart changes, my perspective changes, and it's a journey, it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something whereby I walk into one worship session and I leave immediately a completely different person. Sometimes that happens. By God's grace, sometimes we have a change in terms of how we look at things, and that is great. But after all, when we walk out from this place, when we walk out from the church and we go back to our workplace, when we go back to our families, we go back to so-called reality of life, it's not easy. It's not easy to love, it's not easy to forgive. And in the church environment, this church setting here, the people that you're sitting next beside you, some of us choose to sit deliberately with certain set of people. Some of us just came in, oh, that's an empty spot, let me just sit there. But whatever it is, when we look at the people all around us, especially in this church family here, these are the people that God has placed into our lives to help mold us, to help shape us. There's this saying that goes, iron sharpens iron. And it's so important that we allow ourselves to be sharpened by other people. And we learn through the good times and the difficult times. It's challenging working with people.
Amen.
It is so challenging. Because all of us comes from a different background. All of us comes from a different mentality. And sometimes miscommunication happens so easily as well. And when we are not in the person's shoes, we don't know how the day has been for the person, or the week has been. And sometimes we ourselves don't fail to even understand why we behave in a certain manner, or why we say things in a certain way. So grace is so much required. Because it is true then that we then experience God's grace in our life, and then we can extend God's grace to the people around us. To be able to forgive. Forgive quickly. I like how the Bible emphasizes forgive quickly, just as how the Father forgave us. You know, we expect when we go to the Father, sometimes we place this expectation on ourselves whereby, oh God, I just messed up so bad. I don't think you can forgive me. But then again, who are we to tell God that we don't deserve His forgiveness? Because God has clearly stated that we deserve His forgiveness. That's why He sent His Son to die for us on the cross. Just as much as God thinks and God has done it and proven it that we deserve His forgiveness and we deserve His love and grace, in the same manner, the people around you, especially your church family here, they also deserve your forgiveness. Because you want God to forgive you, they would also want you to forgive them. Have an open heart and open mind to really let go of things and to allow God to work in us and through us. I was really thinking about this tagline that our home group came up with for this retreat, whereby it's focusing on love, on family, and better together. And when I was thinking about it, I was really wondering, are we really better together or not? Because sometimes some people just pretty much bring out the worst in me, and I just snap. And I'll be like, really? How is that better together? It is so challenging. Then, when I really think about it, God is more interested in my character than my comfort. I mean, sometimes life is so great, or life would be so nice. I'm thinking to myself, life is so easy if I can just be with a family that fits my requirement, that fits into my box, that fits into how I would like them to behave, how I would like them to say things and not say certain things, how I would like them to just fit into my box of requirements. But then how does that really help me? Because it is only when I'm with other people, through interaction, through serving, that I really have to practice grace. I have to practice forgiveness. I have to practice love. And I have to choose to love. Love a lot of times comes with a lot of emotions that toys with it. And when we talk about family, when some of us comes from a broken family, we then fail to bring about, okay, what does this family really means? How does it really come about? What about this love? Man, I don't feel like I love the other person. They just piss me off, or they just say something really mean to me. How can I then still love? But then love in the Bible, here we know that it doesn't talk about I feel like I love you. But it's really more of a choice. I mean, do you think Christ feel like He wants to go on a cross? I mean, He certainly didn't feel like it, because when we read in the Bible on the accounts, we know that He actually prayed 3 times to ask God to take this away from Him if it's His will. So it was a choice. When God chose to send His Son on the cross, when Christ chose to deliberately obey God to go on a cross, and when Christ chose to die for us prior to us even before accepting Him. So it is a choice whereby all of us have to make constantly, on a daily basis, to choose to love the people around us, even though when we don't feel like it. To choose to forgive, and to choose to accept people for who they are. You know, yesterday when John talked about the tagline that our church have, come as you are, but not stay as you are. So come as you are simply means accepting people as who they are. Yeah, some people can be abrupt and I can be short-tempered and things, but doesn't mean that I am not capable of progressing better. All of us are capable of progressing better. But sometimes we do make mistakes over and over again. And this is where the family helps us. Because the family of God helps us to see things in a different light. And it is there in this surrounding and in this environment that when we open up ourselves and be vulnerable, we are then able to experience that, hey, it is not so bad after all. Being vulnerable to the people around us. It is this fear that cripples us, whereby the expectation of a family environment, of the church, of what we expect, how the pastors to behave, how the leaders should behave, how we should behave to one another just because we are Christians. And we set that kind of expectation whereby you're just meant to disappoint yourself. So many times when I walk into church, especially initially when I first moved here to Czech Republic, I had a set of expectations that I expected a church to be like. I expected people to be like. And I was really quite disappointed and upset when my expectations weren't met. Were my expectations right or correct? But it's not even about right and wrong anymore. It's about why do we set ourselves up in an environment whereby we expect so much from others, and yet Christ didn't put down these expectations for us to set this kind of bar or this kind of standard from the people around us. But rather, this is why he says this, right? You know, God selected this for us to put on. How are we able to practice compassion if compassion is not needed? How are we supposed to practice kindness if kindness is not needed? Humility, quiet strength, discipline. I mean, you only practice this kind of characteristics when the situation calls for it.
Yes. Struggle.
You can't be kind if the person he's so nice, he's such a perfect person. You can't practice kindness to that. You can only practice kindness to that person when he's mean to you, when a person is not nice at all. And that's where you got to step out and say, all right, I'm practicing kindness now because that is what God has called me to be. Be even-tempered, content with second place. This simply means that we don't always fight for our position. We have to learn to be contented. Quick to forgive an offense. And here emphasize once again that whatever you do, what is most important is that you pick love. Love trumps everything else. Doesn't matter about who's right, who's wrong, but as long as you practice love, love to all sorts of to all sorts of extent for it. To choose to love, it is one of the greatest commandments that God has asked us. And what better way to practice love than in the family of God that God has placed around us? I mean, all of us have got a certain set of characteristics then that's why we hang out with a certain group of people, right? The bird of same flocks flies together. But in the family of God, you are then called to love everyone, not just your friends, not just people that fit into your mold. And that's why when yesterday Pavel and Shaka split up the groups, we were all placed into groups that we wouldn't normally walk towards to, or we wouldn't normally pick up this group of people to hang out with, to do any activities with. But it is true then that when we open up ourselves, when we step out of our comfort zone to get to know other people, do we then realize that, oh, I thought the person was this and this, but actually it wasn't true. I like how Michaela says it best when she made that statement about John. Oh, I didn't know John was actually that funny. He cracked me up the whole time. I mean, on a normal occasion or normal situation, if we don't go out of our way to actually meet somebody, to talk to somebody, to share love and kindness with somebody, we would never know how that person really is. And all of us, whether we like it or not, consciously or subconsciously, we always have got a preset of expectations, or not to say judgment, but we perceive things in a certain manner. And I was really humbled and amazed when the first night, when Mate came out and hang out with us, and he was talking about his background and history and stuff like that. I would have never expected it. Like, oh, Mate had actually so many interesting stories to share. But if I didn't sit down and spend time with him, I would have never known about it. And I would always think, okay, he's like that and like that. But when I got to know him better, then I was like, this guy is great. He had so much humility to share during our discussion when John was giving us the questions to discuss. I was really, really humbled when the team really opened up, like how I mentioned yesterday. People just open up and talk about the things that really troubled them. One of their biggest fears, their greatest needs in life. And sometimes we don't have the answers to everything, or we don't need to. Because when we come together, when we sit down, when we listen, and we put it all on the altar and trust God to meet our needs, sometimes we don't need people to give us the answers. We just need people to listen to what we have to say. And when better together simply means that it doesn't mean that we feel good all the time. That's not what it meant. Better together simply means that even though you don't feel like it, it is the reality that human beings, we are created not to live on an island, but we are created to be around with people so that we can be better, we can grow, and we are able to then allow other people a chance to speak into our lives and vice versa. And we are also then be able to experience the negativity part of human and life, to be able to use it and to learn and to go through life circumstances and situations. When we first came to Czech Republic, it was a tough period for me. It was, I pretty much packed up, left my surroundings, left my family, my friends, and I came in here. And for the first few years when I was here in Czech Republic, I wasn't really connected to a church and trying to live out life on my own, thinking that nobody understands what I'm going through, thinking that I'm better off without anyone. I don't have to be accountable to anyone, to have somebody tell me what to do, what not to do, to have somebody tell me that, oh, you're not doing this right. I just pretty much decided to walk my own way. And that was pretty much the lies of the enemy, that I was deceived, thinking that in this situation that I'm in, nobody could understand what I was going through. But it would have been so much better if I was actually plugged into a church, get myself connected, and open up and talk to people. Because then, when I allow vulnerability to come in, I then also allow acceptance. I then also allow trust to develop. I then also allow God to work in my character, to then open up my heart to other people, into my life there. Because sometimes, I mean, a lot of us, I think all of us have been wounded by the church, by Christians, by families, by people around us. Because we live in a broken world, and each and every one of us is broken. So sometimes we put up safeguards. We build up walls to protect ourselves, that we may never, in light that we may never experience the hurt once again, that the people that has caused our hearts, the amount of emotional pain that we have gone through. And we are just not willing to put down the walls and go through that again because of fear, because of the pain and the turmoil that it just brings people, that we all have gone through. But what I would like to encourage you is that put the wall down, one brick at a time, and allow God to speak to you, to work in you through others. Does this mean that people will never hurt you? Far from it. We are humans. And I'm pretty sure I've hurt a lot of people along the way, from the things that I did, from the words that I've said. But that's where I trust God. And I don't put my trust in mankind. All this while I could never understand when my dad was teaching me when I was much younger. Your trust is in God, not in humans. Growing up, I had really good friends. I had buddies all around me. And my dad was always trying to tell me this. Don't put your trust in man, no matter how good the person is. Put your trust in God. And I never really did understand why. I was like, that's my buddy. Why can't I trust her? She is. We have gone through so many things together. I can most definitely trust her. But there was this one point of time where certain things has happened and we fall out. It was one of the most devastating points in my life because I literally placed all my trust in that person. And I kind of sidetracked God along the way. When that happened, it was emotionally heartbreaking, and it was, from that point of time on, I started putting walls up. I then decided I don't want to ever be hurt in this manner again. So I had friends, I still have friends, but I had certain safeguards up because I don't want to let people into that safe zone in my heart so that my heart can be broken again. But this is whereby I place this expectation of people. I expect them to never hurt me. But this is not what God has called us. Because why? We are all humans, and that's why we trust God. We trust God because knowingly that humans will fail us at one point or another. Be it your children, be it your husband, be it your wife, be it your parents, your siblings, your pastors, your leaders, anyone. Even the person that you love most in your entire life that you're willing to die for. They are the ones that will hurt you the most. But it is then that we know that we trust God to carry us through to any situations in life. And we then allow ourselves to forgive, to let go, to place them in the hands of God and this situation and our fragile heart in God's hands. Some of us have got broken and tattered hearts whereby it's shredded to all sorts of million pieces. But you know what's the best part of it all? When we give our hearts to God, He can mend those broken hearts. It will never be perfect. As long as we're here in this earth, our heart will never be perfect. But God keeps it together. God makes us whole once again. And it's through our weakness that we are then able to rely on God's strength. And this is the same thing when we are here together in this family of God, which I'm really so thankful. And I've grown to love the people that God has placed in my life in this church. And I don't love anyone I don't love everyone. The kind where I feel like I love you so much. No. But I'm so glad that God placed these people in my life. Like for example, Yiji.
Oh, thank you.
On a normal occasion, I may not even hang out with him. Because why? I'm selfish. I like to hang out with people whom I like only. But Yiji has really taught me a lot of things that I've grown to respect him for. His trust in God, his ability to just place in faith in God. Yeah, sometimes he talks too much for my liking, but I love him because, not that I feel emotionally loving him, no, but I love him because how God has used him to speak to my life, to shape me, to allow me to be better, to learn to accept people for who they are, and to give them opportunity and chances that they too are on their own set of journey to grow and to be molded. And ultimately I came to a conclusion when I was really toying with this whole idea about better together. It is true. That we are better together not because we emotionally feel like it, that it's a feel-good feeling. It is not a feel-good feeling. Feel-good feeling doesn't last long. It comes and goes like the wind. But it is a choice that we make that allows us then to be shaped to be better together. And I just want to read this once again because I find it that it really speaks to me there. So chosen by God for this new life of love, dressed in the wardrobe God picked out for you. Compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline. Be even-tempered, content with second place, quick to forgive an offense. Forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. And regardless of what else you put on, wear love. It's your basic all-purpose garment. Never be without it. Love trumps everything, and it is so true. When we allow ourselves to love and be loved, and then we allow God to continue to work in us through the family of God that God has provided for us here in this church. And when we choose to love, and when we choose that to decide for ourselves that it is truly better together, it is then that we will see our lives grow, change, and molded to be more Christ-like. So now I want to just close a short prayer, and Papa will come up to brief us on the next aspects of things there. Father, we thank you that you have placed people into our lives. The ones that we love, the ones that we are trying to love, and the ones that we just can't love right now at this moment of time. Help us, Holy Spirit, to trust you, to listen to your still small voice, and even though we fail and we fall and we fluster and we doubt, Father, I ask that Holy Spirit, you continue to work in us, that you help us make the choice to love, to forgive, to have compassion, to have kindness. And even though at times the battle that we most often struggle with is ourselves, and to let go, Father, I ask that you will speak to us, that you soften our hearts, that as when we come to you, you will show yourself real to us. When we are in your presence, that you will begin to just continue your work within our spirit, the gentle, deep work that only you can do best, Holy Spirit. And give us an understanding that a lot of times the people around us have their own journey to walk, have their own issues, have their own struggles. That even though we do not understand, help us, Father, to extend grace, that we will be able, as we build together in this family, as we build ourselves, and as we build one another, that we can then begin to extend your kingdom to the people around us. No matter how broken our lives is, no matter how broken our hearts are, that you will use whatever that we have gone through as we surrender them to you, that you will use it for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, so hi guys, my name's Daniel. I don't usually speak at the front of church, so just like, yeah. I'm from the UK, if you didn't know, just underneath Manchester in a small town that no one's heard of, so I'm not going to say it. I was born into a Christian family, so my mum and dad are Christians, and I was actually dedicated at the age of 2. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but dedication is essentially where the pastor at the time blesses you, but there's no water. So I'm not sure about the biblical theme behind it, but that's what happened. So then I grew up in like children's church, essentially learning about how God created the world, Adam and Eve, Jesus, resurrection. And my dad was actually the pastor, what became the pastor of the church at the time. And yeah, we kind of moved churches quite a lot. So I was in 4 churches from 0 to 12. So I never actually felt settled with the group because we were always moving on. So you talk about like brothers and sisters even when you were a kid, but that never really happened for me. I would go for like 2 years and then move into another church. So I never had a group around me even when I was a kid. And at the age of 12, my parents moved to another church. My dad had finished leading. And in this church, I was in the youth group, where we still are now. I was there for about 6 years. And we used to go to I'm not sure if you have this in your like home countries, we have like a camp called New Day, or like an alternative where like a group of youth in the summer would go as a youth group with the leader, with other church youth from around the UK, and there'd be like a big tent with like services and seminars and stuff like that. And there was like a healing night at this. I was about 13 in the summer, and I prayed for something, because I always used to say like, okay, so I believe in God, but am I saved? That always got me, like, if I died today, will I go to heaven? And I never really understood that as a teenager. And the pastor at the time, my youth leader, said, just pray for this guy. He had like a crooked back and he couldn't essentially get up in the morning, and I lay my hands on him, and he was just healed straight away.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, so God exists. I was like, it's not just a book. Yeah, and I told my parents, and my parents have said, get baptized. But I never liked the idea of that. So from then on, like, I believed that God accepted my life, but I was never actually, I never felt committed to baptism or any of the church stuff. So every year, the youth leader would stand up and say, we're baptizing the youth this year. And I used to go to the toilet or hide somewhere, and I just didn't want anything to do with that. I didn't want to tell my story. I still wasn't confident to confess that Jesus Christ is King and died for my sins. So I'm believing in God, but I'm still not sure if I'm saved. So the question is, if I died today, would I go to heaven? I always just say, I don't know. And it's weird. I'm not. So, skip to, I go to university when I'm 18 in Nottingham. And I've always wanted to travel the world and do a year abroad. And I actually applied for Canada originally. But it took 3 months for it to come back. And when it came back, it was negative. And I was set that God was going to send me to Canada. That's what someone had told me in the church, that you are going to go to Canada. I feel like God is saying that. And when it came back now, I just thought, God, like, I was so like ready for it. I'd like planned everything, and then it didn't happen. And I sat down with my mum, and we talked through it, and she says, like, we can't understand what God's plan is always, but just have your faith in God. And we prayed there and then that we would know God's plan for my life. Something would come up. And I go back home, I check my emails, there's an email saying there's a place at Prague. Literally half an hour after we prayed. Wow. So I just thought, well, we prayed for it, it's happened, so this is God's will. So I'm in Prague now. And I thought, like, oh, if it's God's will, everything's going to be perfect, it's going to be fine. I have faith in you, Lord. And I get to Prague, and the first week is horrible. Like, my bed snaps, and I'm charged like £2,000. And I'm finding it hard to make friends. I'm only at uni 3 hours a week, so it's really hard to connect to people. And I'm kind of thinking, like, why am I here, God? I'm not sure. Sometimes I think we kind of overdiagnose the work of God in a way. But the day before, I was also struggling to find a church, by the way, because I don't speak very good Czech. The day before, I had emailed Googled English-speaking churches, and PCF had come up on the front. And I remember seeing it, but I just thought, oh, shut the computer. And the computer screen is now up. And I was kind of praying. I was saying, why am I here, God, if it's so difficult? What do you want me to do? And you know how sometimes, like, where the computer wakes up when you hit the mouse? After that, the computer just came up, and it came up with the Google tab, and it said PCF. I'm not sure if that was the work of God or anything, but I do believe that God wanted me to find this family. So I messaged PCF, and I think Kelsey replies saying, yeah, come along, of course, come as you are, essentially. And and I go to the New Connections lunch, and the first thing that John talks about is baptism. And I'm like, no. I don't know, I just kind of went over it. I thought, if I trust in God, isn't it right? It's what the Bible calls us to do, right? So, not sure if that was a bit short, but is that okay?
Thank you so much, Daniel, for your wonderful story. Truly,
can I ask one question? How long have you been here?
September.
September. Okay.
Yeah, just be.
When are you leaving?
July. So I reckon it's like 10 months.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's really amazing how God called us, used us, and lead us to the right direction. I think Google is a big factor because I also know PCF because of Google. Anyway.
Best missionary of this church.
Yeah. Anyway, we can't also wait to hear from the story of Jean.
Okay.
I was not born into a Christian family. It was 14 years ago that I accepted Christ into my heart. But I've always
sought love everywhere else. When I told my father, he told me from a point of view of a marriage and said that I should look around and not stop at the first. And I was living on my own terms, on my own definition of faith. And 2 years after, because of disagreement with my church and also from the death of my grandfather, I left my church, I left home, I started working as a hip-hop dancer, I got into street culture, I was taking drugs, I was a drug dealer, I was an alcoholic, I was I was I then was dating a man who was an atheist, and I was trying all that I could to convert him, but never came close. And I lived like this for a while, and I was just thinking that I was okay and I had everything in control. And because of arts and like curious heart, I also searched in other gods, in Christian theology, Christian religion, Christian everything, and I thought I could expand my mind, my soul, my body, my spirit. I was so strong in getting all my answers. And and then I gave my heart to a Muslim man that had violent tendencies, and then sorry, I knew that 5 minutes was too short.
It's okay. You're worth it. This is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big 10.
Thank you for being transparent.
I ran away from that relationship, and I found out that I was pregnant. I had an abortion that was not out of my will. I went back home. I did not have any support. Neither did I have any financial support from my very rich government. At that moment, wanted to go to a cave and pray that God would have everything settled. And it was the time that I felt the most fear in my life, in that hospital, where for the first time in my entire life I felt that God was not there. And that was such a scary moment for me. I even wanted to have the child. I planned it before with a Muslim burial to honor his family. But that morning when I cancelled all plans, when I awoke from I cancelled all plans and I said that I belong to God. I've always been, and I will honor Him. And I called my church then for a pastor to pray. I got a Christ-embedded coffin and I buried my child, praise God. And I know that He's waiting for me in heaven. And every single day and every single moment that I am alive in this world, God has shown me so much grace. God has just proven so much in my life. I was so sick and I was struggling with this chronic migraines and abdominal pain when I was living in Singapore and having to work in my theatre company, and I was sick, and yet I became vegetarian because I actually wanted to eat meat, but it was all doing this. God took control. I just prayed every single moment, and I refused to go to a summer camp in New York, and I wrote an application to go to a Polish forest to pursue my dance interests. And there in the forest we were running in the fields every morning, and I was one night when the leader was holding a bowl, and he told us, walk in the fields, just walk as far as you can until you can't hear the next person beside you. And I was scared, and I felt the same fear in me, and I walked out, and I remembered God just was speaking to me all the time. And when I stopped where I felt like I should stop, and I looked up, and there was just this one star in the middle of the sky, and from then on, I cried and I poured out myself to the Lord in nature, and I thought, wow, He has a purpose for me here, and I just knew it there and then. And I lay myself on the grass for the first time, just so free, just completely surrendered to what the earth could hold me. And there were bugs crawling up me and mosquitoes and whatnot, and I was with God, and I died there, and from that moment, when I went back to the house, my period came and I overflowed with blood, and so much blood that it was crazy. I was not having a proper flow my entire life, and then I never had these migraines anymore, these abdominal pains, praise God, from that day. And and so many miracles have happened in my life since. I can't ever stop, and I've just been writing them down every single day. There is a miracle done in my life, and to even consider Prague again, I after the Polish Forest, I called my boss and I said, I quit. I'm not going to because I heard a word from God in my dream that I should do this, and then I missed the flight, and then I found myself again jogging in circles in a country that I've never been, and in that jogging of circles, I was connecting to another flight thanks to Flixbus and all that cheap transports. But then my flight had to pass through Prague for a few hours, and that was when I remembered contacting this program head leader 2 years ago through email of her awesome theater program, and I said, could you just meet me for coffee? I'm interested. And in that 40 minutes touchdown from the plane, wow. I met her for coffee, and I went back for my flight, and she told me in that coffee appointment, do you know our applications are extended for another week? And I was like, no, wait, like this, I mean, by the time I quit my job, all applications to all universities were closed. There was no way I was going to be accepted and be somewhere else. And wow. Then I got accepted in Prague, and then I was working my visas in Singapore, and when I was struggling to find accommodation here, and then I you know, every moment just praying to God, He will just show His way so soon. And I'm so grateful for this family that I call now. It was so easy. It was the first church I visited, and I never found a need to go anywhere else. And I went. Finally, when I had time for the home group as well, and I went, and you know, Stacy was nice and said I didn't have to I had to try, but I didn't felt the need to ever try and see others. I knew that I was meant to be there. I knew so strongly where I have to go, and as my journey at this point as well, my work takes me to places where my heart again needs to affirm so strongly that He is my King, and not only that He is my King, it's not that the other beliefs and spirits are God as well, but there is only Him. Yes. And that I have this duty in between so strongly to tell the world about that, about this affirmation, and I may not be clear with my words. I was mute for a long time when I was a child, but I know so strongly in my heart my calling right now, and I need spiritual warfare so strongly, and I need God. And I thank you so much for being with me.
Amen. Yes.
So we're going to let Jean go first because she's ready.
She's ready. And I just have a couple of questions for you. Yeah. I'm going to do the questions on the dry land. Ready? So, Jane, do you confess that you were a sinner and separated from God?
Yes.
Do you confess that Jesus died for your sins and reconciled you to God?
Yes.
Do you confess that because of Jesus you've been transferred from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of the beloved Son in whom we have forgiveness of sins?
Yes.
And do you confess because of the sacrifice of Jesus you've been made spiritually alive to God and you're a new creation with a new identity?
Yes!
Okay. Let's go.
Okay. Just do it quick.
Into the cross. Don't forget to hold your nose.
Thank you, Lord.
Jean, you get your nose. Okay, Jean, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in the name of Jesus, we baptize you today. Where's your towel?
It doesn't matter.
Daniel, do you confess that you were a sinner and separated from God?
Yep.
And do you confess that Jesus died for your sins and reconciled you to God?
Yep, pretty sure.
And do you confess that because of Jesus you are transferred from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of the beloved Son in whom you have forgiveness of sins?
Yes.
And do you confess that because of the sacrifice of Jesus you've been made spiritually alive to God and you're a new creation with a new identity?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. He's like, hurry up. Go. Go for it. Ben, you're a strong man. Thank you. He's going right in. Yeah, we'll take a partner.
Okay, Daniel. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit, in the name of Jesus Christ, we baptize you today.
Okay, car.
Okay, I'm driving them home. You guys can enjoy the view and take pictures.
Oh, Lord. Oh, yeah, no, that's too numb, man. Get that. Že jako si víc uvědomíš, co děláš, protože to tak intenzivní.
Finish also, I think they go like in the hot sun.